How did she get this? Why does she have a picture of him? He's younger than what I've ever seen him, a little boy, but the eyes are irrefutable. There's no mistaking what I know so well. It's him. But why? The doorbell rings, startling me, and I drop the frame, cracking the glass as it lands on the wooden floor. Shit. Scrambling, I pick up the small frame and tuck it in the back of my pants as I run to see who's at the front door. Before I make it, there's a loud knocking.
Elizabeth, you in there?
Lachlan? Looking out the window, I see it's him. What are you doing here? I question when I open the door.
Declan asked that I check in on you, and when no one answered my gate call at his home, I came here.
He's been gone only a few hours. What trouble could I possibly have gotten myself into in such a short period of time? I tease. But the cool metal frame in my pants is evidence I smirk at.
What's so funny?
You men need hobbies, I quip as I turn my back and walk towards the stairs.
I've been worried.
Have you now?
Declan told me you had a hard time with the file, he says.
Embarrassment rouses, but I shut it down quickly. I'd prefer to never discuss that issue again.
Of course. My apologies.
Look, I appreciate you checking in on me, but if you don't mind, I'm just packing the rest of my things to take back to Declan's.
Are you sure everything's okay?
He presses as if he's privy to something he believes me to be aware of. Call it intuition, but everything about today has got me on high alert for some unsettling reason. Yes, everything is just fine, I say smoothly with a light smile to appease him. The past couple of days have been taxing, as I'm sure you can understand. He nods, taking my directive to not mention the file. You can report back to your boss that the kid in question is taking good care of herself. I smile at my words, and he laughs in return, agreeing.
Will do.
He turns to leave, but before he shuts the door behind him, he says,
By the way, I've tried calling you a couple times.
I left my phone here. No one calls me on it, but now that I know I have a babysitter, I'll be sure to charge it up for you, I joke. He shakes his head at me with a smile and then leaves. I go to the door and lock it behind him before returning to my room. Tossing the rest of my things in my suitcase, I take the photo out of the frame and shove it in my bag. I don't know why she has this picture, but I want it for myself. When my luggage is loaded into the car, I head back to Brunswick Hill after returning the key to the planter. A part of me wants to call Declan to ask why he sent Lachlan to check in on me. He says he hates me, but then I see these hints of the man I knew back in Chicago. The man who was furious if I was more than a minute late. The man who controlled and dominated to ease his worry. But I won't call him because I never know what it is about me that's going to trigger him to push me away. What the hell? I murmur under my breath when I round the bend in the road and see the same car that was at Isla's now sitting outside of Declan's gate. Slowing the Mercedes, I stop and wait since the other car is blocking my way. My curiosity is piqued, wondering if Declan is still having me followed, and if so, why they are being so blatant about it. Growing impatient, I honk my horn, and when I do, the driver's door opens. I watch a shiny black loafer step out onto the street, and 1,000 penetrating emotions shoot off inside of me. What the fuck is he doing here? Nerves rack me as I fist the steering wheel tightly in my hands. I watch him approach my car, and for a split second I consider running him over. But the truth is, I have no idea why he's even here. So without wasting another second, I fall back into the character I know so well and hide myself in Nina's mask. Righting my spine, I forget all about Elizabeth and open the door. How quickly you move on, he taunts as I stand before him. Nice to see you too, Richard.
I doubt you mean that, but thanks anyway.
What are you doing here in Scotland?
I could ask you the same, but I think it's pretty clear.
His words irk me as always, and I bite my response. Cut the shit, Richard. Tell me why you flew halfway around the world. His face flattens in a no-nonsense expression when he states,
"We need to talk."
"About what?"
"Your husband."
As far as I know, Richard knows nothing about the lies and deception. He only knows me as Nina, Bennett's wife and now widow. He's been Bennett's business partner from the very beginning, and the two of them were close. Not close enough, though, because I know Richard is clueless to the fact that Bennett fucked his precious little wife, and that the baby Richard believes to be his is, in fact, just a pathetic bastard. "I haven't been contacted about anything concerning the investigation," I tell him. "Are there any new developments?" His eyes narrow, and I don't trust the hinting grin on his face.
"Don't you think it's a little hard to be in the loop of information when you're operating on a cheap, disposable phone?"
My poker face is strong, but my body numbs, wondering how he knows about my untraceable phone. My words deflect my panic as I say, "Always butting your nose in where it never belongs, aren't you?"
"Like I said, we need to talk."
"Then talk."
"Inside,"
he states firmly. "Why not here?" He grows irritated, fuming loudly.
"Because it's fucking cold and my balls don't like it."
He's so damn disgusting. I hesitate on taking him inside Declan's home, but figure it's safer up there with all the cameras than down here on the street. "Fine." He follows me through the gate and up to the house. As I lead him in and to the library, he remarks,
"You don't ever slum it, do you?"
"Is there a point to the nonsense you spew?" I sit across from him, and when he takes a seat, I say, "So what is it? What is so important that you needed to travel all this way?" He leans forward and takes a moment before looking over at me, revealing,
"I know who you are."
"Oh yeah? And who's that?"
"No use in playing coy because I know your dirty little secrets."
His words imply threats, and I don't take well to his evasiveness. "Cut the shit and get to your point."
"He knew. Bennett had me following you when he suspected you were fucking around on him."
"It was you?" He nods as he leans back, getting much too comfortable for my liking. I think back to the hospital, and I knew the voice sounded familiar when he told Bennett who I really was, but I couldn't pinpoint it with all the drugs they had me on.
"Needless to say, I wasn't surprised when I discovered your affair," he says condescendingly. "What did surprise me was when I found out you were nothing but runaway street trash."
"What's your point, Richard?"
"Why did you marry him?"
"Because I loved him," I lie. "Nothing wrong with reinventing yourself to get a fresh start in life."
"Except when the person you reinvented yourself for winds up dead."
"You're an asshole," I sling at him in mock disgust.
"I just have one question. Who did it? Who did you have off him?"
"I don't know what you're talking about."
"How convenient. But I don't think the cops would buy it if I turned over all the information I have on you."
"You're so cute," I sneer, pissing him off. "You think your threats have an effect on me? Why don't you just tell me what you're after and stop wasting my time?"
"No bullshit. Cut to the chase."
"Please." In all seriousness, he tells me,
"I need money."
I laugh, and he snaps,
"What the fuck is so funny?"
"You!" I sit back, cross my legs, and ask, why on earth would you be coming to me, of all people, for money?
"Because I trust you to keep that pretty little mouth of yours shut if anyone were to come asking questions."
"What do you need money for?"
"You haven't been watching the news?"
"I've been a little preoccupied to be keeping up with American news." He shakes his head with an arrogant smirk, and I cross my arms in irritation. "Enlighten me, please."
Link Incorporated is under investigation. I thought you'd know that by now since your lover's father has been sitting in jail for his part in the fraud.
"What?" I question, confused as to what the hell Cal has to do with my husband's business and what was fraudulent about the company. "What fraud?"
"The company's just a front for washing money."
"Money from what?" Richard then stands and walks across the room. When he's right in front of me, I freeze as he reaches his hand inside his suit jacket.
Guns, he states as he pulls out his own and aims it at me. Adrenaline flushes through my system as I stare into the barrel of the pistol that's marked me as its target. I try to appear calm, but my staggering breaths are my tell. I'm scared. I want what was left to you in Bennett's will. You give me that and I'll disappear. You'll never hear from me again.
He didn't... I stutter over my words. I didn't get everything.
You're lying to me. I know you're the sole heir.
Shaking my head, I try to explain. I thought I was, but he changed it right before he died. I didn't know until I met with the attorney. He scowls, takes another step closer, and presses the cold steel to my forehead. I gasp in fear, clutching the arms of the chair as my heart beats in erratic terror. My voice is pitchy when I frantically explain, Look, if what you're wanting is money to flee, I don't have that much for you. I mean, it wouldn't be enough.
Then where is it?
The desperation in his eyes makes me fear what he would do if I told him the truth. He'd most likely lose his shit and pull that trigger if he knew about his son being Bennett's. But beyond that, what the hell was Bennett doing with his company? Did he even know? My mind warps in confusion, overwhelmed with too many questions that I begin to lose focus.
Where is it?
He shouts, scaring the shit out of me with his murderous glare. The tip of the gun shakes against my head as I look up into his furiously crazed eyes, and I begin trembling, my whole body jittery in fear. I don't know.
Whack!
I scream in heated pain as I fall out of my chair and onto the floor. My hand cups the side of my head where he just pummeled his gun, the blunt force sparking a fire of light in my vision as I fight against the sharp agony that pierces through my skull. He stands over me, pointing the gun at my face, and I wail, Okay, okay! I throw my hands up in surrender.
Stop fucking around with me.
I'm not.
Where is it?
It's in a trust, I reveal. He put it in a trust I don't have access to. Richard kneels down to one knee, hovering over me, gritting between clenched teeth.
Whose trust?
With nerves crashing, I tell him, A trust for his son.
You lying cunt.
Fuck you! It's the truth! I lash out when my anger grows at his degrading words. My emotions get away from me as my head spins in waves of turbulence. As I stare up at this man I've loathed for years, I see the wretchedness and desperation in his eyes, and I feel a little deranged as I begin to laugh at him.
What the fuck are you laughing at?
He played us both, I say as my laughter intensifies.
What are you talking about?
Bennett, I tell him.
He doesn't have a son. I've known Bennett since he was a kid. I know everything about him, so I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
No? I question in mockery. Tell me something then, I start, and pleasure blooms inside of me to be the one to deliver the truth to him. I smile and continue. How deeply have you looked into Alexander's eyes? I watch as his face contorts and add, Because if you look deep enough, you'll see Bennett staring back at you. And when realization splays across his face, he takes a step back in shock. I know Richard adores his son, probably more than he does his wife. So to be the one to stab this dagger of truth through his heart delights me. I move to stand, and when I do, the giggle that slips from my lips is maniacal as I gloat. That's right, Richard. Your precious little wife fucked my husband and they had a baby together.
You're full of shit.
Bennett left everything to him. But if you think you can get the money, you're wrong. You see, Bennett was smart enough to not assign Jacqueline as the executor. He assigned his attorney. His nostrils flare, and I lose myself in utter delirium as I continue to laugh at every fucked up part of this crazy story. The room spins around me, a blurry realm of colors and shadows, as my hearing tunnels in the reverberations of my own laughter.
Fuck you,
his voice cuts through,
but only for a moment before he swings his arm around. It all happens in a flash of slow motion, but too quick for me to stop, as he drives the gun with a force that parallels his anger into my head, knocking me off my feet. My head clips the corner of an end table before smashing against the floor. Light flashes behind my eyelids. Sparks. Diamond dust. Clouds. Blackness. Chapter 32. I scream from my throat behind the tape over my mouth. My heart crashes so hard it beats in my head. Sheer panic punctures every organ inside of me, flooding my body in pure fear as I thrash around in the darkness. I jerk and kick, but my wrists are bound behind my back and my ankles are tied together in duct tape. I force my voice as loud as I can as it scratches through my strained cords. I know no one can hear me, but I don't care. Twisting my hands is useless against the tape that's secured in a tight restraint. Frustration boils over, prickling in tingles along my palms, and I lose control. I release another worthless, muffled scream, squinting my eyes in an attempt to amplify the sound as I flail my body around like a maniac in the trunk of the car I've woken to. Time wisps past me as the miles collect and my panic dissolves. My body slacks, absorbing the bumps in the road as I'm being taken into the labyrinth of Richard's desperation. I knew better than to push him over the edge like I did, but I lost it. I was outside of my head and taking joy from my lashings, but now those lashings have me tied up in the trunk of his car, and I have no way to escape. I fill the drive trying to figure out what the hell Bennett's company was being used as a front for. Richard said guns, but in what capacity? All I can think about is my father's business. He trafficked guns. Is it possible that's what Link is a cover for? Another trafficking scheme? Surely not. But if so, is it in any way linked to my dad? My thoughts aren't logical. I mean, maybe it's coincidental. Fuck, what's going on? Did Bennett know? I find it so hard to believe that he did. He was such a straight-edge guy, built out of strong values and always following the rules. It was sickening to watch, but that was the core of Bennett. And how the hell was Cal involved? Maybe Bennett did know. After all, Bennett and Cal worked in a few business deals together through the years. Does Declan know about his dad? God, he seemed like such an honest guy as well, but maybe he knew. Irritation swarms the more I think and question, but what's the use? I'm not going to dissect this on my own. My body alerts as I feel the car slow and then come to a stop. My pulse quickens when I hear the door slam shut. Are we in a public place? Are people around? Do I risk making noise? Taking in slow, quiet breaths, I focus on what's going on outside, but I hear nothing. Every muscle in my body is tensed up as I wait, but nothing happens. Time continues to pass, and eventually I feel myself drifting to sleep. I struggle to stay awake as my eyes fall shut. I don't know how long I've been out when I feel the car halt to a sudden stop. I wonder how far we've traveled. I hear the door shut, and it's only seconds until the trunk pops open. Light burns my eyes, and I flinch away as Richard's hands grab onto me, yanking me out of the car. I don't even think to take in my surroundings, simply fighting against his hold, jerking my body around. With his hands on my arms, he slams me against a solid rock wall. He knocks the wind out of me, and I gasp desperately through my nose while my throat strangles against my depleted lungs. Hunched over, I panic and choke when he grabs my hair and pulls my head up. Hairs rip from my scalp as a steel blade meets my cheek. My eyes widen in horror as my breath finally catches. Whimpering, I close my eyes as he presses the blade into my soft flesh. My cry is muffled by the tape that still covers my mouth when I feel the pop of my skin as he slices me open. He then presses the flat of the blade to the tape that covers my lips, saying, "If you think I have limits, you're wrong." Bending down, he uses the knife to cut the duct tape around my ankles, but leaves my wrists bound. The blood from my cheek drips from my jaw, landing on my top. "Walk," he commands, grabbing my arm and leading me down an alleyway. I look around, quickly attempting to figure out where we are, but it's too dark, and the alley is too narrow. He leads me down a flight of steps to an underground area, and I remember Lachlan telling me about the vaults under the city. He told me some of them now serve as clubs or restaurants, some for ghost tours, but others simply remain empty. And there's no doubt that's where he's taking me as he moves me through a stone tunnel, damp with water, and into a fairly large room. Taking in my surroundings, I can tell this used to be used for a business of sorts. There's electricity, built-in counters along one of the walls, a desk, and a couple of chairs. I watch as Richard walks over to the desk and lays his gun down. When he returns to me, he rips off the tape covering my mouth, and my eyes prick with tears against the sting. "Sit down," he tells me, and I obey. "What do you think you're doing?" I ask. "You're all I've got. I need you to help me disappear." "From what?" "If the cops find me, I'll spend the rest of my years in prison." And he's right. Richard is in his late 50s. I don't know the crimes he's committed, but the fact that he's just kidnapped me tells me he's in deep shit. "But I told you I don't have what you're looking for," I tell him. "You may not, but someone who loves you does." "Who?" "Declan McKinnon." I shake my head, saying, "You're wrong. He doesn't love me. He hates me." "Yet you're living with him? I think you're lying to me." "I'm not. You have to believe me. He doesn't love me. He keeps me there to punish me." "Punish you for what?" he questions, but I bite my tongue, not sure how much to say. I won't incriminate Declan, but do I incriminate myself? If I do, I run the risk of going to jail myself. So I give him what he already knows from following me back in Chicago and say, "For the fact that I wouldn't leave Bennett for him." I tell the lie, but I hate it because Declan is worth so much more than anyone else on this planet. Richard chuckles in irritation. "I don't know exactly what you were doing with Bennett, but I'm smart enough to know, Elizabeth Archer, that you didn't love him. So what was it about for you? What were you after, money?" I don't respond to him as he stares down at me. After a moment, he grabs a chair, pulling it in front of me, and takes a seat. He leans in towards me, and my head throbs in beats of aching heat from where he pistol-whipped me. His eyes bore into me as a sly smirk creeps across his lips. His voice is low when he asks, "Or does it all have something to do with your father?" My body pricks in chills at the mention of my dad. I tense around my hollowed chest and wonder why he would even mention my father. What does he know? I don't say a word out of utter terror that I've gotten myself mixed up with the wrong people when I started this fucked up game. I've always been in control when it came to my charade in Bennett's life, but now all that control is gone and in the hands of this bastard, and that has me scared beyond belief. I pretend to be strong, but the reality of this situation has all confidence lost. I've been kidnapped and I don't have the first clue how to get myself out of this. "I don't know what you want from me," I finally say, my voice coming out weakly. "What I told you about Declan was the truth. He hates me. He won't care if you hurt me." "Then you need to find a way to make him care," he sneers before backhanding me so hard I fall out of the chair and onto the floor. My vision fades for a moment when my head hits the concrete, and my urge to attack fumes inside, but I'm bound and useless. "There isn't anything I wouldn't do for my family," he tells me and then steps away. Staring up at him, my frustration multiplies, and since I can't knock the shit out of him, I attack with my words. "Even with Bennett's dick inside your wife? Would you have done anything for her in that moment?" "Your lies are humorous." I don't acknowledge his denial as I continue antagonizing him, spitting my words. "Did you enjoy fucking her when my husband's cum was still inside her filthy pussy?" He stomps back over to me, and I laugh just to piss him off even more. He grabs my hair and immediately shuts me up when he balls his fist and punches the side of my face. Everything turns bright white, and my mouth fills with blood from where my teeth puncture the inside of my cheek. Writhing in agony, I groan in exploding pain from my head. My skull thumps hard, and I can't open my eyes because it hurts too much. And the next thing I know, he covers my mouth again with tape. The pain in my head increases as time passes. I've got my body pressed against the wall as I continue to lie here, and I wish he would just knock me unconscious to put me out of my misery. When Richard walks out of the room and into the corridor, I make an attempt to break the tape as I twist my wrists, but it's not budging. I roll off my side and onto my stomach before I start grazing the side of my face along the floor. When I start to feel the corner of the tape pull away from my mouth, I press my face down harder, rolling it to try and catch more of the tape to pull it off. Once I feel the tape peel off the corner of my lips, I use my tongue to push it off. And when I can move my mouth and speak, I wait for Richard to return. I can hear him talking to someone on the phone, but I can't make out what's being said. After a while, he returns, and I keep my voice as free from hostility as I can when I say, "It's true." His eyes meet mine, and I add, "They did a DNA test that Bennett kept in his safety deposit box. Bennett left him everything. I couldn't believe it when I found out, but it's true." "Tit for tat," he says, confusing me. "What does that mean?" He then pulls his chair around to me and sits as I lie here, staring up at him. "You hurt me, I hurt you." My brows pinch together, not understanding his riddled words. He continues, "I've got nothing to lose, and unless I get my money, you're not walking out of here alive. And from what I remember of your father, he wasn't much of a fighter. So I have a feeling your days are numbered as his were." "Fuck you," I snarl at him for speaking shit about my dad. "You don't know what you're talking about." He laughs at me, revealing, "I know more than you think, little girl. You see, I knew your father." My chest palpitates anxiously when he says this, and 1,000 questions flood. "Steve and I go way back." I don't want to believe Richard had anything to do with my dad, or that my dad had anything to do with him. But if he were still alive, he'd be right around Richard's age, so there's possibility in what he claims. But how? "When Bennett had me following you, I started digging into your past. When all the pieces came together, I couldn't believe the Archer girl had been right in front of my face for years. I should have known you'd turn to pulling cons. At first, I thought I was your target, when I was convinced you knew who I was. But when I started thinking back, I realized you didn't. I knew then it was Bennett you were after, but I still don't know why." "Why would I be after you?" I question in terror, wondering who this guy really is. "Maybe you blamed me for what happened." "Tell me how you knew my dad." "There's a lot I can teach you, you know. You were pretty good at fooling Bennett for all those years, but whatever it was you were trying to do, you moved too slowly and didn't properly assess the people you were surrounding yourself with." "Tell me," I demand as I struggle to keep my tears back, because just talking about my dad has me falling apart. He's my weakness, my softest part, and now I fear Richard has something to do with me losing him. "Tell me!" "Call Declan." "What? I don't have his number." "Then we wait," he says. "I know he's in London and will be returning tomorrow. You'll call his landline then." "Tell me how you know my father, Richard. You want to hurt me? Is that what you want? Then just tell me, because anything you have to say about him will surely be a dagger." "That's too easy." Richard then leaves me to be as he moves to the other side of the room and sits. I struggle to get comfortable with my hands still taped together. I lie on the cold concrete and rest my cut cheek to the ground to help soothe the ache that pulses through the gash. My head weighs heavy in an excruciating headache, and I close my eyes to drown out the cheap fluorescent lighting, but the buzzing from the bulbs keeps me agitated. Hours pass as I drift in and out, and when the fog from all the high-strung emotions begins to clear, I'm finally able to focus. I run through everything Richard has told me, trying to figure out what the fuck is going on, when I remember his claim. Guns. Chapter 33. Declan. My meetings have been long, sitting around and listening to several architectural firms make their presentations and going over the bids for the job. This will be another boutique hotel that will cater to wealth, and above all, privacy. Lotus was my first solo venture, and it has proven to be a success in the few months it's been open. We maintain an exclusive clientele, which the city of Chicago was in desperate need of. It's full service in every luxury accommodation, selective on who's approved to book a room, and the London property will be the same. I ring the house as I head back to the hotel for some much-needed sleep. It's late, and I'm at my end. It feels strange to have Elizabeth in my home, as if she's more than just a house guest. She has me on mental overload. There are times I see her, and I want to smash her face against a wall because my anger is too much to contain. And then there are times I look at her, and I wish it could be like before with us. In those moments, I want to touch her and inhale her soft scent. I want to feel her, lick her, taste her, fuck her. I want it all, but my heart refuses to get too close to her. She's the devil's angel. The moment I start crossing lines, I shut down. It's not even something I consciously realize I'm doing. It just happens. One moment I want my tongue tasting her sweet mouth, and the next I want to rip more of her hair out. Fucking her outside against my house yesterday was a twisted delight I selfishly indulged in. When I saw her from my office window, sitting on the ground, I saw someone so broken that I doubted her malice. In that moment, I let my guard down and got tangled up in the moment, and nothing can deny the solace that consumed me when I sunk my cock inside of her sweet pussy. Having her snug around me, Jesus, no woman has ever felt as good as her. But her warmth and comfort are merely an illusion. She's a magician's ruse that I stupidly fall for repeatedly. She's evil and duplicitous, and yet a part of me wants her, a very disturbed part of me. Because no one in their right mind would want anything to do with the widow who injects her poison with self-serving motivations. For some reason, in knowing what a con she is, I don't want her to leave. A part of me feels sorry for her. I pity her. I've never seen a person at a lower point than she is at right now. This has to be her rock bottom because I'd hate to see what would happen if she got any lower. Her body is branded in self-inflicted abuse. She craves the moment that she can hurt herself. I know Elizabeth is a sick woman who needs help, and the dark part of my soul wants to be the one to offer it. It's screwed up because I also want to punish her. When I told her to strip down last night, my plan was to humiliate her by having her perched on the ground as I had instructed. I left her to grab some rope because I had every intention of punishing her. I was walking around the house with a hard-on just thinking about it. My mind was consumed with visions of her tied up while I slapped her pussy and tits until they welted up red, picturing my cock shoved down her throat, gagging her, just so I could see tears fall down her rosy cheeks. Even now that I know about all that she endured as a little girl at the hands of her foster dad, I still want to debase her like that. It's wrong, I know it, which is why I didn't return to her. I couldn't allow myself the pleasure that would just solidify the savage I fear I am, the savage she groomed me to be. But I hurt her anyway, and when I went to her room and saw the mortified look on her face, I hated myself in that moment. There's no answer when I call, so I hang up and dial my home again. Nothing. She's probably outside. I pull up the security app on my phone to log into my home system. Once it's connected, I tap on each camera to view the rooms in the house. From the kitchen to the library, atrium, bedrooms, dining room, office, roof. Nothing. I then flip over to the outdoor cameras and check the grotto, backyard, and various cameras that overlook most of the grounds. No sign of anyone. When I tap to view the garage, I notice my Mercedes Roadster is missing, which explains why she's nowhere to be seen. Irritation scathes me, not knowing what she's up to or where she is. I hate not knowing details, especially when it comes to her. I know I'm controlling and overbearing, but it's the only way I know how to function without losing my shit. She no longer has her old cell phone, and I haven't seen a new one, so I don't have a way of contacting her. I decide to call Lachlan. I told him to stop following her because I didn't like how involved he was getting in her life, but I swallow my pride and call him anyway. "McKinnon, how did the meetings go?" he says when he answers. "Good," I snip. "Look, I'm trying to get a hold of Elizabeth, but she isn't at home and I don't have a cell number for her." As soon as I have her number, I hang up and dial it. Elizabeth. A subtle vibration is all it takes to rouse me from my restless exhaustion. My mouth tastes metallic from the blood I consumed when Richard punched my face. I shift off my side and onto my back. The arm I've been lying on tingles and aches painfully. Looking across the room, I see Richard slumped back in a chair with his eyes closed and a hand on his gun. My body alerts when the vibrations return. My thoughts are hard to grab onto with the multiple strikes to my head and the emotional roller coaster I've been on since Richard appeared in front of Declan's home. I focus on the faint buzzing sound, and my stomach clenches when I remember my cell phone. My body went numb a while ago, so it's hard to pinpoint, but I know I shoved the phone in the pocket of my pants. I look back to Richard. His eyes are still closed. My heart begins to race as I shimmy to try and move my arms as quietly as I can. With my eyes locked on Richard, I make attempt after attempt, but it's no use. I can't get my hands to my pocket. I know it's Lachlan calling me because he's the only one I ever gave that number to. "Richard," I call out to wake him up when I get an idea. "Richard." "What the hell do you want?" he says on a groggy voice when he opens his eyes. "I have to go to the bathroom." "Hold it," he snaps and closes his eyes again. "I can't, but I have no issues peeing myself if you don't have any issues smelling it," I lash back. He breathes out in frustration and walks over to me, grabbing my arm and picking me up off the floor. Walking me down one of the corridors, we stop in front of a door. "Hurry," he demands, and I look at him, reminding, "My wrists." With a long, distrusting glare, he then says, "Turn around," and I do. He takes his knife out, and when he slices through the tape, finally releasing my hands, the phone begins to vibrate, and fear crashes inside of me, locking my body up. When I turn to look at Richard, I can tell he hears the phone by the look on his face. He knowingly cocks his head to the side, and in a moment of fright, I lurch forward and bolt. I'm not even allowed 1 second of attempted freedom as he immediately catches his arm around my waist, pulling me back. I fight against him, but the moment his fingers latch around my neck, I freeze. His hand pats my pockets, and he pulls out the cheap, disposable phone I've been using since I arrived here in Scotland. He flips it open and holds it out in front of my face while he has me in his chokehold with my back pinned against his chest. He then selects the last number that called and clicks it. Putting it on speakerphone, he threatens, "Say 1 word, and I'll make you regret feeling like you ever had a chance of one-upping me." And then the ringing stops when the call is connected. I hold my breath, and Richard remains quiet as we both wait for the contact to reveal themselves. A few seconds pass, and then my heart pumps hope when I hear the worried voice of the man I never gave this number to. "Elizabeth?" His accent wraps around my name, and it feels as if it's wrapping around my body in a soothing hug. I want to speak,
to defy Richard and yell out all the details of my surroundings so that Declan can find me, but instead I hold tightly to my breath.
"Elizabeth, are you there?"
"She's here," Richard answers.
"Who's this?"
"A man that has no conscience or limits," he responds before letting me go and handing me the phone. In an instant, after taking a couple steps away from Richard, he has his knife to my face as I slowly bring the phone to my ear. Richard then takes my trembling hand as I listen to the gravel in Declan's voice, assuming Richard still has the phone, threatening, "My word is my mark, and if you lay a hand on her, I'll—" "Ah!" I cry out in white, blistering pain, dropping the phone to the ground and stumbling back on my feet. Gripping my wrist, I wail and stare in horror at the palm of my hand that Richard just dug his knife into, slicing it wide open. Blood is everywhere, oozing out as I hunch over and cry. Looking up, Richard now has the phone, but my body is in shock so that I can't hear anything he's saying to Declan. I fall to my knees, forcing myself to calm down by taking in slow, staggering breaths. But all I'm doing is choking in shallow pants. I ball my hand into a tight fist, wincing through the burning sting as I hold my hand against my chest.
"Let that be a lesson,"
Richard says as he walks over to me, no longer on the phone.
"Don't cross me again."
He then reaches down and starts tugging at my clothes and shoving his hands in my pockets.
"You hiding anything else?"
"No."
"Stand up,"
he orders, and once I'm up on wobbly legs, he grabs the neckline of my top and slashes his knife through the fabric, cutting it right down the center. Shoving the fabric away, he runs the flat of the blade over the swell of my left breast, and when he reaches my nipple, he flips the knife to its razor edge. I've lost all control of my body as it shakes violently. My eyes are closed while he taunts,
"Defy me now. I dare you."
His words are an echo of Carl's. He would provoke me the same way, daring me to push his limits, as if it was giving him my consent to hurt me even more.
"What are you doing?"
Flicking my eyes over Richard's shoulder, I see Pike standing behind him.
"You're forgetting everything I ever taught you," he tells me. "You're so much stronger than this pussy in front of you. Stop letting him think you're weak."
Shifting my eyes back to Richard, I take Pike's lingering voice and inhale his words in a steady breath and release it slowly from my nose. I let my walls down with Declan, something I felt was right to do, but I forgot to bring them back up the moment Richard showed up. So with calculated intent, I mend the chink in my armor and steel myself to take whatever comes my way. The knife continues to roam over my tits as I pull my strength together, and once I feel confident in my shield, I move my eyes to meet his. "Can I take a piss now?"
"That's my Elizabeth,"
Pike encourages before Richard gives me a snide nod, and I turn to open the door. Declan.
The call disconnected, but not before I heard her blood-curdling screams. Focusing on the threats coming from the unidentified man on the phone was almost impossible when my only concern lay within the girl whose shrieking cries could be heard in the background. I demanded to know what he had done to her, but his priorities were in the instructions he was giving me. And now I fly around my hotel suite, shoving my clothes into my suitcase at the same time I wait impatiently for Lachlan to answer my call. "Where the fuck is Elizabeth?" I bark when he answers. "I don't know. Why?"
"She's gone. I need a plane, now."
"Slow down, McKinnon," he says. "What's going on?"
Blood courses erratically, like a raging stampede inside of me. Zipping up the luggage, I answer, "Someone's taken her."
"Are you sure?" he says in surprise.
"Yes, I'm fucking sure. I need a plane 5 minutes ago. Make it happen and call me back." I don't waste time arranging for a driver, instead rushing down to the lobby and grabbing the first cab I see. "Biggin Hill Airport," I tell the driver.
"You okay, sir?"
"Get me there as fast as you can."
He nods without further question as I wait impatiently for Lachlan's call, but all I hear are her screams as they play over and over in my head. So many times I've wanted to inflict a pain so brutal to induce that type of reaction, but knowing her torture is outside of my control has my heart racing to protect her. It's a twisted thought, but if anyone is going to hurt her, it's going to be me. I think of all the people who would choose to use her to get to me, and I'm drawing blanks. Truth is, I don't know the people she surrounds herself with, if any at all, but this person, whoever it is, was targeting her and knew just where to find her. Logging back into the security cameras from my phone, I click through the rooms looking for any kind of clue I can, because I don't know what else to do in this moment. When I check the camera that looks over the drive, I see my car that's missing from the garage. She must have been taken from the house if the car is there, but how? Why would she let anyone in the gate? The phone rings, and I quickly answer. Did you get it? Yes, the plane will be ready to go in half an hour. Good. What can I do? Have you seen her or spoken to her since I left yesterday? I ask. No, I've been home. They want money, I tell him. Who? I don't know. After you gave me her cell number, I called, but she didn't answer. I dialed the number a few times, and then a man answered. I could hear Elizabeth in the background. What did he say? That we each hold something of value to the other. That he will let her go when I wire money into an offshore account. How much? Enough to destroy either my foundation or my business. What are you going to do? And when he asks, my answer comes easily and without second thought. I'll do anything to make sure she's safe. Once the words are spoken, I catch myself in a revelation I wasn't expecting to come to so effortlessly. I hang up with Lachlan and attempt to convince myself that I shouldn't be wanting this, that I should just turn a blind eye to her and let this situation work itself out. She'll be destroyed, and in return, I won't ever have to deal with Elizabeth again. Because if this man owns up to the promise he made on the phone, he'll kill her if he doesn't get his money. And then the book will be closed, and I can move on. But I can't do that. I can't turn away. Taking the laptop from my briefcase, I log into the security cameras again. This time, to backtrack the footage that was recorded. I load the camera that monitors the gate to get a timestamp on when any cars arrived. It takes a while, but soon, 2 cars approach, my roadster being one of them. I watch closely and switch cameras when they pull up to the front of the house. An older man, around the same age as my father, emerges from the one car. They speak and then head inside. I switch cameras again when they walk through the house and down to the library. She grows irritated, and I wish for the life of me there was audio on these cameras. They sit and talk before the man turns angry, lurching off the couch, moving towards Elizabeth. And what happens next drains all warmth from my bones. I lean in toward the screen, while I watch this unknown bastard take a gun out of his suit jacket and aim it right at her face. Her hands are white-knuckled to the chair as he then presses the barrel against her forehead. Every cell in my body fills with a storm of tumult as I watch my world spin more and more out of control. I watch helplessly when he pistol whips the side of her head, sending her flying to the floor. They exchange more words. She stands. He slams the gun into the side of her head again, this time knocking her unconscious. He then goes out to his car and returns to duct tape her lifeless body, binding her ankles and wrists. Anger explodes, erupting in an outburst of seething fire when he hunches over her and spits in her face. Once he's dragged her out of the house and tossed her into the trunk of his car, I slam the computer shut. My breaths come heavy, loaded with guilt, fury, and an undeniable urge for vengeance. I want to kill that motherfucker. Drive faster, goddammit, I bark at the driver. Raking my hands through my hair, I can feel my body shuddering in emotions I need to get in check before I lose all the temperance necessary to keep my shit together. As we continue to drive, and the mania begins to dissipate a little, I'm reminded of all the ways this woman has sent my life into an upheaval of disarray. Her cunning hypocrisy, her ugly spitefulness hidden underneath her shiny exterior, and the blood that will ever last on my hands because of her malicious and selfish vendetta. I remind myself of all the reasons why I should let this man kill her, remind myself of all the reasons why I hate her. But no matter how many reasons there are, I can't rid myself of the unyielding need to find her. It tugs on the threads that stitch my heart together, the heart that she ripped from my chest and tore apart. And as much as I want to deny it, as much as the thought repulses me, the fact is, the one that destroys is the one that heals. I need her.
Chapter 34. My stomach growls as I sit here on the ground with my hands bound with a plastic zip tie around a pipe that runs down the length of the wall. Since restraining me, Richard has retrieved a bag from the car filled with food and water that will never find its way into my stomach that hungers. So I sit and watch, having no idea how much time has passed, if it's night or day. We're underground, and I can tell by the looks of his phone that he's also operating on an untraceable disposable, making me worry that no one will be able to find me. Although Declan called and now knows I've been taken against my will, a part of me doubts that he cares enough to even come looking for me. But he's the only hope I have, because there's no one else out there that even knows who I am. No friends, no family, nothing. Strength wanes. Hope fades. The tired fight inside of me vanishes. Slowly, I open my fisted hand and wince from the sting of oxygen hitting the gash in my palm. Flesh covered in crusted blood, blood dead, proof that nothing survives forever. Old news to me, but yet I've always chosen to go on. Why? What's the point? Win one battle only to be faced with another, but when will it end? Will it ever stop? Cellophane crumpling draws my attention to Richard's hand that holds a wadded chip bag. He stares at me as he throws it my way, but it doesn't reach me as it falls to the ground. I look at the garbage and can't help but compare myself. I sit here, lifeless as well, but marred in swollen bruises, cuts, and scabs. Some are self-inflicted, but others come from my love and this bastard in front of me. I'm waste. What are you waiting for? My voice cracks. My words catch Richard's attention, and he looks down at me with question in his expression. No one's coming for me, I tell him. If you think Declan cares about me, you're wrong. He doesn't respond as we stare at each other, and then I ask what I need clarity on before my time runs out. How did you know my father? His eyes shift to his gun that lies on top of the desk, and when he reaches over and picks it up, he gazes at the steel as if it's his desired beloved. You worked together, didn't you? I ask on a trembled voice that threatens to break. Pieces begin to connect in my theory. You said you used Bennett's business to wash money from guns. Keeping his hand around the pistol, he rests it upon his thigh when he leans forward, saying, You have no clue the tangled web you're caught in. It's almost a privilege to be the one who gets to unwrap this gift for you. I thought I knew Richard. Thought he was nothing more than an ascot-wearing chauvinist that I didn't have to worry about. But now I have no idea who this man sitting in front of me really is. I'm wondering if we're more alike in the fact that we mold ourselves in pursuit of self-gratification and manipulation. Just tell me, I say, free from revealing the emotions tugging at me. Steve worked for me. He worked as the middleman, the eyes and ears on both sides. Both sides? Me and the mules. I can't even attempt to connect the dots that led him to Bennett because all that floods my mind is my dad. Never have I pictured my father other than what he always was to me, and still is, my prince with a handful of pink daisies. I can't imagine him working for a man like Richard, a man that dug his knife into my face and hand just to prove a point.
He was always loyal, though, he adds, until he took a plea bargain in exchange for names. I guess he thought the feds would protect him, but Menard is filled with prisoners that are linked to me in one way or another. Although he never gave me up, which I hold great respect for, he did give up names of men who walked the low ladder of the business, and for that he paid the price.
You bastard, I breathe in sulphurous hate.
Me?
You knew he gave up names?
Yes.
And out of loyalty to you, he never gave you up?
Steve did what the feds asked of him in exchange for an early release. For you, he says, nodding his head to me for emphasis. But at the same time, he never turned his back on me.
His words are gloats of pride for his assumed stature, and I grow in rage at the price it cost my father. The gravel in my voice thickens along with my animosity when I say, "But you held power. You knew the danger he was in, and you did nothing to protect him from what you knew would be inevitable."
It was out of my hands.
Blood boils, fists clench, and I begin to tug my wrists against the zip ties as I seethe. "But you're the boss! You hold all the power, and you did nothing!" And then it starts clicking. The pieces now begin snapping together. Twisting my hands even more, the edges of plastic dig into the tender flesh of my wrists, cutting the tissue and releasing the blood my wounded heart pumps. "You wanted him dead," I state in my revelation. "You were scared, weren't you? You knew he gave up names, and you feared it was only a matter of time before he sold you out too, right?" His head tilts, and his condescending gesture acknowledging my theory as truth sets me off. "You fucker!" my screaming voice scratching my throat. "It was you! You put the hit out on him, didn't you, you motherfucker?" His only response is a slow upturn to his lips as he sits there. I've always put all the blame on Bennett, and even though I hate Bennett for being the catalyst for all this shit, it was Richard who had the say in my father's life, and he took it to save himself. "You're a fucking coward!" I spit out as I feel the bursts and pops of veins and ventricles, heartbreak over and over and over. My daddy risked his life in giving up names just to get to me. Blood rolls down my arms like teardrops as my skin rips open as I fight against the zip ties. When my frustration snaps, I release a defeated scream and slump over. My bones tremble, and when I hear Richard chuckling, I turn to him in disgust. "Does this get you off?" He stands and walks to me.
Seeing the Queen of Chicago society fall apart before my eyes? Yes,
he responds, and then kneels down in front of me, touching his finger to my face and running it along the cut on my cheek and then down my neck. His touch is vile, rousing my stomach in putrid disgust, and I just can't take it.
"Tell me something," he starts. "When you found out that Bennett cheated on you, did you wish you'd known before he died so you could have gotten even with him?"
He then takes the knife out of his pocket and pops the blade up. My eyes follow his hand as he moves the blade to the zip tie and holds it against the plastic that's now covered in my blood.
"Did you?"
he questions again. "No." I didn't give a shit about Bennett cheating because I never felt anything for him other than pure hate. Suddenly, with quick movements, Richard cuts through the restraint and frees my hands. He then moves the blade between my breasts. My top hangs open from where he cut the fabric earlier. I hear the lace snap apart when he presses the blade against the fabric, and I know his intentions. Focus is key, and knowing the process all too well, I protect myself and shut down. He now knows the truth about his wife and son. I could overhear him when he was down the corridor and on the phone right after he bound me to the pipe. I knew he was talking to Jacqueline. He questioned her, and I could tell from the words he spoke that she admitted the truth to him. He didn't raise his voice or become irate. It was the opposite.
He remained collected, but looking into his eyes right now as he cuts through my bra, I see the fire of betrayal burning, and I brace myself for what I know is coming my way. Retaliation. Richard doesn't know how strong I am when it comes to sex. After all, I made it through 4 years of fucking the enemy, and I did it so well that he was none the wiser of my deep-seated hatred for him. My body is used up and polluted. It always was and always will be. Even Declan desecrated it when he raped me, so when Richard pushes the fabric aside to expose my tits, I feel nothing. The cold, dank air hardens my nipples, and when this happens, he smiles and gloats. Eager, huh? Fucking idiot. When he stands up, I notice his erection pressing against his slacks. He walks over to the desk, exchanging his knife for the gun, and returns to me. My breath catches when he shoves the muzzle underneath my chin. "Don't get brave on me," he threatens. "One wrong move, I'll put a bullet in you." Although I now know his true profession, I still want to doubt that he would be a man capable of killing, but his next words disintegrate all doubt. "But something tells me you won't beg for your life like your little boyfriend's mother did, which is disappointing. I love hearing a woman beg." My eyes widen in shocked disbelief. "You?" I question, horrified. "Sometimes in life you have to teach people lessons, and when Callum thought he could screw me over, I made sure he learned I wasn't someone to be fucked with." He's right. I've gotten myself tangled in the most fucked up cryptogram imaginable. "What does Cal have to do with any of this?" He shushes me, running his gun down my belly and shoving it into my pants, the coolness of the metal seeping through the lace of my panties. His grin is scathing when he unzips my pants to earn more room to slip the barrel between my legs. He slides it back and forth along my pussy, all the while smiling. But I'm detached. My mind is in the past with Declan on the afternoon when he opened up to me about his mom being shot in the head. The pain he hides so well surfaced in his eyes, and just like me, the moment he lost his parent, he was forever maimed with a wound that would never heal. I would do anything for him, and to know that Richard was the one who pulled the trigger that forever fucked up Declan's faith in security and comfort fuels my affinity for revenge. Richard catches my attention, taking me away from my memories when he begins tugging my bottoms down my legs. "My wife acted like a cunt," he says, "but she's not here for me to release my anger on, and neither is Bennett. All I have is you." With my panties gone with my pants, he forces my legs wide open and presses the muzzle of the gun over my clit. My body locks up in horrid fear. I close my eyes, bracing myself for whatever is to come next. And after he makes me wait, I gasp when he forces the barrel of the loaded pistol inside of my pussy. Keeping my eyes pinched shut, I press my lips together and force myself out of this moment while he fucks me with his gun. I remove my emotions and escape, giving him my body that's proven to be nothing but a piece of garbage. He glides the pistol in and out of me while I dig my fingers into the concrete beneath. Richard lets out a pleasurable groan as he starts fondling my breast in his one hand. I swallow down the puke that burns the back of my throat. My head rings loudly, and when the shield becomes too much for me to keep up, I beg for Pike to come, but he doesn't. The iron cast cracks, chipping away piece by piece, and behind my closed eyes is Carl. No longer is Richard's gun raping me, but instead Carl's filthy dick. My body jerks when the numbness wanes, and soon I can feel everything that's being done to me. When my hips buck, my eyes flash open to see the devil above me, and I lose it. With all my strength, I grab his wrist and lurch my hips back, forcing the gun up to my forehead, screaming like a maniac, "Pull the fucking trigger!" He looks at me bitterly, and with my hands fisted tightly around the barrel of the gun, I shriek, pressing it harder against my head. "Do it, you piece of shit! Pull the trigger!" He yanks the gun out of my hands and snarls, "What the fuck is wrong with you?"
"What are you waiting for? Declan's not coming. He would have already called by now, so why wait?" I tell him. "Just get it over with. Shoot me."
"Like this?" he questions, cramming the gun into my mouth. I sit still, tasting the mixture of my pussy and metal. My lips wrap around what I yearn to be my savior. I nod my head and pray for the shot that will end my misery once and for all. But instead, he uses it to degrade me even more. Fisting my hair, he forces my head further down on the gun. "Suck it," he demands as he bobs me up and down. I gag, tears springing from my eyes as he makes me deep-throated. He then pushes me away and stands. "Put your pants on and shut your fucking mouth." And as the saliva drips from my chin and I wipe my eyes, the phone rings. Chapter 35. Declan. "The cell number is coming up blank. It must be a burner phone," Lachlan tells me, and it makes sense that she would be using a disposable under the circumstances of her dead husband and all the lies. "Maybe the police would be able to bypass the blocks. I mean, the calls are going through a cell tower. Perhaps they can track that." "No cops," I order. The call was choppy, cutting in and out, so they have to be somewhere secluded. "I'm almost home, though. How far are you?" "Half an hour." I hang up, and when I arrive at the house, I take my time heading up the drive, looking around for any clues. My black roadster is parked in front of the fountain, and when I get out of my SUV, I walk over to check the door to find it still unlocked. The car is empty aside from the suitcase I find when I pop open the trunk. Once inside, I head straight to the library to see the furniture slightly disheveled from the altercation I witnessed on the surveillance. I look around, stomach twisting, heart thudding, questions brewing. Setting the suitcase onto the couch, I start digging through it, and I realize that she went back to the water lily to retrieve the rest of her belongings. As I'm rummaging through her clothes, my hand hits something hard. Grabbing the object, I pull it out, and the moment I catch sight of it, a chill takes over me. My fingers shake as I hold the picture frame and stare down into my own eyes looking up at me. Where did she get this? Unlatching the back of the frame, I take the photo out to see if anything is written on the back to find there is. Declan, 6 years old. I'm sitting by the small pond that was on the land of the home I grew up in. I'm staring up at the camera, smiling. The water is filled with lotus blooms, the blooms my mum loved so much. I remember how much she enjoyed that pond. She would sit along the bank with her legs hanging over the edge, just as I'm doing in the picture. She'd laugh in the sun's edge of spring, skimming her painted toes on the water's surface, calling out to me, her voice delicate and loving, "Sit with me, sweetie. Dip your toes in." And I did. The water was cold that day as we sat together among the fragrant lotus flowers. Her face is still so vivid in my head, flawless and milky. She was beautiful, with long brown hair that she would pin up in a bun around the house, but when she was in the gardens or by the pond, she would let it down. My eyes closed to bear the ache in my chest. The memories hurt, and the visions only remind me of what I allowed to be taken from me. I shake the past away, forever weak to let myself think about my mom for too long before I'm reminded of the coward I am. Reality comes back into play when Lachlan calls from the gate. I let him in and stash the photo back inside Elizabeth's bag, still confused about where she got it and why she has it. But I push the thought aside when Lachlan walks into the room and tosses his jacket over the back of one of the chairs. "He was in this room with her," I blurt out. I pulled up the security cameras. He had a gun, smashed it into her head, knocking her out before he taped her up and threw her in the trunk of his car. "Fucking hell," he mutters in disbelief. "Where's the computer? I want to get a look." Grabbing the laptop, I log in and pull up the footage to show him. He takes the computer, and sits at the desk in the corner of the room. I pour 2 fingers of scotch and throw it back quickly, not even caring to respect the smoky flavors because I just need it to take the edge off before I completely go ballistic. "Where's the gate cam?" he asks, and I walk over to show him the particular camera he's wanting. I watch over his shoulder as he clicks to zoom in on something, which I didn't think to do because I swear to God I'm losing all sense of focus. "There it is," he says as he grabs a pen and jots down the license plate number. Christ, I'm a fucking idiot. "Not as much as this fucker," he counters, and then grabs his cell. "Try to relax. We'll find her. Let me make a couple calls while I grab a cup of coffee from the kitchen." I nod and walk over to the couch and take a seat, but the moment I do, I hear a buzzing coming from Lachlan's jacket. Curiosity peaks, and I go over to find another cell in one of the pockets. With no name flashing on the screen, I accept the call and stay silent. "Baby, are you there?" a woman says, and it takes me a few seconds to connect the voice in my head. "Camilla?" There's a moment of silence before my father's girlfriend questions in return. "Declan?" "Why are you calling Lachlan?" I ask, but she quickly pivots, saying, "How have you been? Your father and I haven't heard from you since you—" "How do you know Lachlan?" I question, cutting her off mid-sentence.
Well," she stumbles. "Maybe you should probably ask Lachlan."
"I'm asking you." There's no immediate response, but it isn't long before she releases a sigh and reveals,
"Your father is in a little trouble. I wanted to call and tell you this sooner, but your father insisted that I refrain. You know how stubborn he is."
"Stop this shit, Camilla. How do you know Lachlan?" "It's a rental," Lachlan announces when he rushes back into the room, and in the same second, Camilla hangs up, disconnecting the call. "What the fuck is this?" I question as I hold up the cell. He's collected and calm, responding, "My personal cell." "And that is?" I question, eyeing the cell in his hand. "My work phone." "So tell me then, why is my father's girlfriend calling your personal cell? And why, when I asked her how she knows you, did she choke like a cheap whore giving head?" "Camilla's an old friend. Don't worry, your father knows that. You probably just caught her off guard when you answered the phone." His composure makes me second-guess whatever suspicions I have, but she called him baby, and I can't ignore that, but I also can't waste time right now. I'll have to deal with this shit later as I draw my attention back to what he said about the car. "McKinnon," Lachlan adds, "relax, okay? We're going to find her." I'll relax when she's back in this house. Tell me, what did you find out? "I'm waiting on a call from the rental company. Seems whoever this guy is, he wasn't aware that the car has a tracking device in it that the company installs on all the vehicles." "What about the police?" "The minimum wage kid who took the call was an easy payoff," he tells me. Grabbing her bag, I say, "I'm going to check her room. I'll be down shortly." "Sure thing." Heading upstairs, I walk into the guest room I put Elizabeth in since bringing her home with me earlier this week. I set the bag down and sit on the edge of the bed. When I go over to the nightstand, I see a pair of pearl earrings along with a necklace that catches my attention. I pick up the thin silver chain and stare at the small charm that hangs from it. A lotus. How could a woman who is so dead inside be so sentimental? This girl is incredibly damaged. To wrap my mind around her psychotic thoughts and deranged actions would be a wasted effort, because there's no way to make sense of it all. The trauma that a person has to endure to get to the state of mental instability that she's in is gut-wrenching to think about. Everything she's told me about her childhood, everything she went through, is morbidly sickening. If I had to walk around holding on to what she does, I'm not sure I could live with myself. Her past has molded her into a monster. But to look into her eyes as deeply as I find myself doing, there's something innocent inside of her. She's very much like a child in many ways. I see it in small glimpses. It's almost as if she hit pause and stopped living when she lost her dad. Like she's somehow stuck because the life she was thrown into was too heinous, that she never let go of the childlike beliefs that the world is a good place filled with good people. You would never know it unless you found yourself in the core of her. She knows how ugly life is, but there's a little girl inside of her that hasn't given up just yet. I'm helpless sitting here, not knowing where she is or what that fucker is going to do to her or has done to her. Never have I wanted to save someone as much as I did when I believed her to be Nina. I would have done anything for her, and I did. My love for her was so strong that I never thought twice about turning myself into a monster too, for her. As much as I hate her, as much as I want to hurt her, as much as I wish I'd never met her, I can't walk away from someone I love so deeply that she's in my marrow. The girl is crazy and out of her mind, and for wanting her, I am too. Nothing can deny the force that pulls me to her. Even in my most wretched thoughts, I'm still drawn to her. "McKinnon!" Lachlan shouts. "Get your ass down here, let's go." Flying down the stairs, I ask, "What is it?" "She's in Edinburgh. The location of the car isn't a pinpoint, but it's close enough." "1 second," I tell him, before rushing up to my bedroom to grab my gun. Energy powers through me like lightning as I move quickly through the house, and when I make it outside and jump into Lachlan's SUV, my heart races out of control. "Talk to me. Where is she?" He hands me the phone with the map open, and suddenly, my surge of optimism that we might know where she is morphs into dread. "There's no way. It's too populated," I say. "It's all we have to work off of. That's where the car is." "That may be where the car is, but there's no way that's where he's got her," I tell him as I look at a map of downtown Edinburgh. "Who are you calling?" he asks when I pull out my phone. "Her. He's got her phone." After one ring, the call connects, but there's nothing but silence. "Tell me where you are." My demand is met with a sinister laugh from this dick fuck, before he responds, "Now why would I tell you that?" "I have the money you asked for," I lie. "Very good, but I don't want to touch it. I'll give you the account information you're to wire the money into. Once I get verification the money has been transferred, I'll text you the location of wherever I decide to drop the bitch off." "I want to talk to her first." "I don't know if she's in the mood to talk right now." "I don't give a fuck," I shout. "Put her on the phone or the deal is off. I can take or leave the bitch, so it's up to you." My words, fallacies. Silence spans before he responds. "I don't think so. You see, I don't give a shit what you feel for the girl. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I wanted to use her as leverage, but she isn't the only leverage I have on you." "And what's that?" His next words drain my veins and then fill them with icy fear. "Bennett Vanderwall." Fuck. Chapter 36. "What did he say?" I asked timidly, after hearing Richard tell Declan that if he couldn't use me as leverage, that he would use Bennett. "Looks like you were telling me the truth." "What do you mean?" "Seems Declan doesn't give a shit about you." I knew it. I knew that if forced for an answer, that I would never be it. And now I sit here, half naked, beaten, and raped, as the last of my heart incinerates into ash. Go ahead and take a breath now, because I'm finally ready to be blown into nothingness. I now know my lies truly destroyed what I never wanted them to. I knew Declan was conflicted. I felt it in his push and pull, but I hoped there was a piece of him that still wanted me regardless of all my sins. So I close my eyes, and green meets blue as Declan looks at me the way he did back in Chicago. He will never look at me with adoration as he once did. I ruined it for both of us. Now I'm left with this pain ripping inside of me. It isn't the pain of heartbreak, though, because I've already lost that.
My heart no longer exists, and it can't be my soul, because I'm without that too. But it's real, the pain I feel. It comes from somewhere inside of me, a place I never knew I had, and it hurts deep. Hurts in a way I've never felt before. It's so unbearable my body can't fight it, so it shuts down on me. I'm lifeless, flesh and bone, the weakened muscle inside my chest beating slowly, pumping what I pray is venom into my veins. I don't want this anymore.
What if he's lying to you?
Keeping my eyes closed because just hearing his voice is enough to console me, I lie down with my head in Pike's lap, and he places a soothing hand gently over my swollen face. He's not, I whisper to him in response. My destruction went far beyond the capacity of forgiveness.
What the fuck are you talking about?
I hear Richard's voice bark, but I shut it out and focus entirely on Pike. Pike is all I want right now. He's the constant that's always been in my life. He never turns away from me, never stops comforting me, never stops caring for and loving me. My face scrunches in despair as I try so hard to hold myself together. I can't stop missing you.
I can't stop missing you either.
Battling with my emotions causes my body to tremble, and I know Pike feels it when he says,
"You want to play a game?"
I nod. You can pick this time.
How about breakfast foods?
Okay. Pike and I always used to play this word game when we were kids and I was locked up in the closet. It was his way of distracting me from my awful reality. We'd play this game for hours in the middle of the night while he sat on the opposite side of the door. And in this moment, in his death, he never fails to take care of me. Pancake, I say, playing my first word.
English muffin.
Nutri-Grain bar.
Rice Krispies.
We continue to play our words while he runs his fingers through my hair, careful to not hurt the tender scab that still remains on the back of my head. I never open my eyes, and eventually, before declaring a winner, I drift to sleep. Cold metal prodding my face wakes me up. My tired eyes come into focus as I jerk my head away from Richard's gun. I look at him, his face pale and his hair messy, as if he's been anxiously running his hands through it. He's jittery, kneeling beside me, and I have no clue if something happened while I was asleep to cause his shift in demeanor.
"Have I given you the impression that I'm one to be toyed with?"
he says with a tight jaw, pissed. I shake my head, and he snaps,
"Then where the fuck is he?"
I don't know.
"I will put a bullet in your head the same way I did the McKinnon woman. I swear to God I will."
I won't fight you, I tell him calmly. You want to kill me? Then kill me. He grabs my tattered shirt and shakes me, losing control while he screams in aggravation,
"What the fuck is wrong with you?"
If you wanted me to fight, you picked the wrong girl. There's nothing for me to fight for. He shakes his head, confounded, and then clues in, saying,
"So you don't give a shit what happens to you? I could do whatever I wanted with you, and you'd let me?"
You can't possibly hurt me. I'm already dead, I tell him, the sound of my own voice creeping me out with its eerie tone. But first, I add, fill in the blanks.
What do you want to know?
Cal, what does he have to do with the guns?
He was my washer,
he tells me freely, taking a deep breath and sitting next to me with his back against the wall.
Cal used to push the money through a random laundromat he acquired for the sole purpose of covering the money trail, but I later found out he was being greedy and filtering some of the money into an offshore account that was linked to him. That's when I taught him his first lesson in loyalty and killed his precious wife. He never stole from me again.
His words turn the venom of my heart into the blood of life. Just because Declan doesn't give a shit about me doesn't change my love for him, but I hide my shift. I'm like a machine when I continue my quest for clarity. And Bennett?
Bennett was a man who trusted too easily, which made him my perfect asset. His father actually worked with yours." "What?" I ask in shock. "I always suspected bad blood between the two. Then it became apparent when he put the authorities on Steve. I didn't know this until after Steve was already locked up, but apparently when Bennett came home one day talking some nonsense about how he thought your father was hurting you, that's when he saw his chance to get your dad out of the game." My hands tingle in fury as I listen to his admissions. I can't even see straight as my desire to kill that piece of shit sparks to life. This man, my fucking father-in-law, was yet another man who had a hand in my father's death and the destruction of my life. Later, when Bennett was older and acquired his first production plant, his father convinced him to partner with me. We knew it would serve as a better cover for laundering the money. Bennett trusted me as a longtime family friend, took the advice of his father, and the rest is history, until you came along and fucked everything up with your stupid charade. I sit in silence, trying with everything I have to control the anger exploding within me as I process what I've just heard, realizing that all of us are linked in one way or another. There was a time I was the one in control and able to manipulate people into my puppets. But I know now I was never in control because I never truly knew the cast of characters I lured my way into. "But I will admit," he continues, "I'm impressed with your efforts, even though you failed miserably." "Who says I failed? You're stuck down here with me too. You're not free." "I will be." I can't contain my chuckle, and when it grows, Richard fumes, "What's so funny?" "You." "Do tell." "You're so focused on yourself that you're shadowing the fact that, in a very twisted way, I won." He cocks back the hammer of his gun, the snick of the metal sounding when he does, and then points it straight at me, but he doesn't intimidate me. "Don't you see?" I say in total control. "I want you to pull that trigger, so no matter what you do, I win." I take a hard swallow before going on, telling him, "It was you. You're right. I did get myself tangled up in something that was much bigger than me, but the root of everything, which I thought was Bennett, is actually you. And because of my stupid scheme, your family is now tainted in Bennett's blood through your son. Your whole cartel is falling apart, and your freedom depends on the money of a man who'd rather see me dead than alive." His eyes narrow in a murderous glare, but I don't stop, adding, "And if you think you have him fooled by threatening to know about his involvement with Bennett's murder, you're wrong. If anyone is to be pegged for that crime, it's you, the leader of one of the largest international gun trafficking rings, using Bennett as your cover." Richard pulls the gun away from my face, but doesn't disengage the hammer. "You've got it all figured out, don't you?" he taunts. "You think you have me played, telling me you want to die to take the pleasure away from me. You say I can't hurt you, but I think you're lying." "Kill me or don't kill me, I don't care." "I think you do." I then wrap my hands around the barrel and place it back on my forehead, stating firmly, "I don't." Agitation streaks in the lines of his face now that I've taken his bargaining chip away from him. He gains nothing from killing me, not even joy, because he knows I won't beg for my life. Richard drags the gun down my face, along the bridge of my nose, over my lips, and then slips it into my mouth. I knew my sanctuary would be in death, and I was ready to be released into the oasis I'd been longing for. But even though I was ready, it didn't mask the fear of having a loaded gun with the hammer cocked inside my mouth. One slip and that chambered bullet would fire. I can still taste the steel of his pistol on my tongue if I think about it hard enough. Can still feel the way my heart ricocheted off my ribs. I had been close to death before, but it was always in my control. Not this time. This time I was on Richard's watch. He would say when. He would be my executioner. I remembered hearing the voices. My ballasts, Daddy, Pike, and even Carnegie. They were there with me while I rested on death's lips, waiting for its kiss.
Their words of courage to guide me from evil sang in my head like a melody of deliverance, but it wouldn't be enough, and I was about to find out why. Richard uses the gun to guide me down on my back while he pushes it into my mouth. With his free hand, he rips the buttons to my pants open, demanding, "Take them off. You're not going to rob me from feeling gratified." Idiot. He's stupid to think that he can degrade me for his pleasure by fucking me. I do as he instructs, kicking off my pants while he fumbles with his own. I don't offer any fight when he shoves his pants down just far enough to pull out his dick. Nudging my legs open, he sits on his knees while holding himself in his hand and slapping it against my pussy a few times. "Hands under your ass," he tells me, and I lift my hips to place them beneath me. "Time to even the score." This man's pride is fucked up. To be concerned about getting even with his wife in this moment? My body slacks when he slams inside of me. I refuse to give him the satisfaction of tensing up. I keep my eyes focused on the pistol in my mouth as the metal rattles against my teeth while he violently pounds into me. He braces all his weight on his one bent elbow, grunting with each thrust. My tits hang out of my ripped clothes, jiggling while he fucks me with barbaric force. This is my life. This is all it's ever been. Light turns dark as my eyes close, silently begging for him to release me to my paradise. From across the room, I hear my cell ring, and my heart jolts alive. He's calling. My eyes pop open when the thought flashes quickly that maybe Richard was lying about Declan. My body jerks the moment the phone goes off, startling Richard in that exact moment, and everything happens in a lightning-fast haze when he falters, losing his balance. The instant the gun slips from my mouth, Pike shouts urgently, "Elizabeth, fight!" And without thinking how or why, I automatically react. Willing my strength, I drive my elbow into his arm, knocking the gun out of his grip. Adrenaline pumps through my system when the gun goes off, firing a bullet into the concrete wall as it skitters across the ground. The blast is deafening, but somehow I'm able to flip onto my stomach, scrambling as fast as I can. I sling my arm out to grab the gun when he locks his hand around my ankle and yanks me back. My fingertips skim the pistol as I'm being pulled away, and the commotion is a total blur. Ripping out an excruciatingly demented scream, I fight with everything I have in me when I twist around and lurch my shoulders off the ground. With his pants still down, I dig my hands into his thighs, and with all the force in me, bite the ever-living shit out of his dick, snarling like a wild beast as I do, and his voice erupts in pure acid. "Fuck!" Flesh pops in my mouth as my teeth cut straight through the elasticity of skin and sink into tissue, spurting blood everywhere. I feel the thick heat of it splattering on my face and coating my lips and chin. His screams are deadly as his body falls to the ground, and I jump to my feet, charging for the gun. The moment my hand wraps around the pistol, I turn, aiming it at his head, and scream like a maniac as my body detonates every emotion imaginable, but none of them make sense as they shake me to the bone. Chapter 37. Declan. Lachlan and I located the rental car a while ago, with no traces of where they could be. We're wasting delicate time wandering around the usually busy streets of downtown, but it's the middle of the night, and Lachlan and I are the only ones lurking around. "This is fucking useless," I gripe in frustration. "Every business is closed and locked up. It could be anywhere." "What do you want to do?" Huffing out an angry breath, I let my head fall back as I look up into the dark of night. We've been scouring these streets for hours and nothing. For all I know, this car could have been ditched for another and they could already be in another country. Lifting my head, I turn to look down the narrow close that's to my right. There are so many of these alleyways in the city, and we've been walking through them all night, it seems. I'm plagued with an unsettling sense of doom that I'll never find her. The thought grabs a hold of me, twisting my gut as I think about not being able to see her face again,
or hear her say my name in her sweet American accent. I can't stand the thought of her never knowing the truth of my heart. She deserves to have the peace of knowing that I still care about her. After everything she's been through, and even after all the corruption within her, she still deserves to know. Pulling out my cell, I began to walk again and decide to call her phone once more. I dial the number, and after the first ring, I startle when I hear a loud crack that splits the night. "You hear that?" I ask Lachlan, the words flying out of my mouth. His eyes are wide, alarmed, saying, "That was a gunshot." Grabbing my gun from its holster, I fly down the steps of the alley, because that sounded like it came from beneath me. My body surges in a rush of power as I go into overdrive. "McKinnon!" Darting down the stairs, I don't stop as I shout over my shoulder, "Keep a lookout!" A man's torturous screaming fuels me, and I follow the echoes into the underground vaults. My heart has never raced so fast when a woman's screams filter in through the man's. With the gun in my hand, I run as fast as my legs will move through the narrow passageways. In an instant, I kick through the door to find a scene so disturbing, my gun immediately finds its target. Their screams bounce off the cement of the small vault, piercing my ears. I'm horrified as my eyes flick back and forth between the two of them while my mind tries to grasp what's in front of me. A man I don't recognize is crumpled on the floor, his face utterly pale as he begins choking on his breath. His pants are down, and his lap is covered in blood. And when I look over to see Elizabeth, I turn sick. She stands there naked, with only a cut-up shirt and bra hanging off her arms. Her mouth is covered in blood, and when I jerk my head back to the guy, I realize that the blood on her is from that bastard's dick. Cries slice through her screams as her whole body shakes while she steps towards the man with her arm outstretched, holding a pistol. "Elizabeth, no!" I shout when she rams the muzzle of the gun into his forehead and keeps it there. She doesn't respond to me in any way as she stares down at the man. "Don't pull the trigger," I order, my words coming out fast while I have my own gun aimed at the man. Her screams are replaced by staggering breaths hissing through her teeth, and I know that any second she's going to murder him. "Elizabeth, look at me," I urge. "Don't kill him." "Why?" she seethes. "Because you already know it's not going to make you feel better." "You motherfucker!" she screams hysterically at him like a crazed animal. I take a couple steps closer to her, but she snaps, "Stay away from me." "Please," I beg, "no more killing." "If not for me, then I'll do it for you," she says cryptically. "Consider this a gift." "What are you talking about?" She cocks the hammer back before finally looking over at me and says, "He's the one that killed your mother." Looking over to him, I pull back the slide on my gun to chamber a round. The metallic click is all I hear in this moment. I can feel the beast inside, digging his claws into the most wounded parts of me. It takes control of me, and without hesitation or question, I squeeze the trigger and put a bullet in his head. I can't look away from him as blood sprays and chunks of his head fling across the room. His body tips over, still as death takes him instantly, dark blood draining from his mouth. Elizabeth continues to aim her gun at him, trembling in shock with wide eyes, and I move cautiously over to her. Not taking a moment to process what I just did, my concern goes straight to the distraught girl in front of me. When I reach out, she snaps, "Don't touch me!" and I immediately recant. "Let me have the gun." "No." "He's dead," I tell her, but she doesn't respond as she keeps her gun pointed at him. "Look at me." "No." Her body is battered beyond belief as I scan over her. Added to her self-inflicted bruises is a nasty wound on her cheek covered in crusted blood, swollen contusions on her face, and a black eye. She's not only covered in her own blood, but also the blood from the man who lies dead at her feet. Her breathing is rigid as I watch her, and eventually she drops her arms and allows me to take the gun from her hand before falling to her knees. I release the hammer and set the gun down along with my own. As I start unbuttoning my shirt, I kneel down next to her and drape it over her back to cover her up. She keeps her chin tucked down, and I notice her slashed wrists covered in blood when I take her hand in mine. It's going to be okay. She remains silent as I sit with her. I want to do so much, but all I can manage is to simply observe. Her once beautiful red hair is dirty, matted in blood. She's a fraction of herself, and I find it painful to look at, but I look anyway. And as sick as it sounds, I've never felt more bonded to her than I do now. Both of us exposed for the evil we are, killers with mangled souls. No longer can I blame her for my sins, because I just murdered of my own free will without her persuasion or seduction. She may have birthed this malignity inside of me, but I'm the one who now embraces it.
"He killed your mom,"
she says again, and I can barely hear her faint voice when she adds,
"He's the reason my dad is dead, too."
"Who is he?" I ask in utter confusion to this situation.
"Richard Brooks. He was Bennett's business partner,"
she answers, and then goes on to explain how our fathers worked for him and the hit he put out on her dad. I sit and listen to everything she tells me, the whole time keeping her eyes downcast, almost cowering as if she's afraid of me. But it's when she says,
"Cal is in jail,"
that her eyes finally lift to mine. Did Bennett know?
"No. He thought he was running an honest business. Richard and Cal used him."
Every muscle in my body is tensed up because I know at any minute I'm liable to break completely. As I ask questions to piece the puzzle together, my heart and mind remain with my mum. The fucker's blood that killed her at point blank pools under my loafers, and I have to swallow down the bile that threatens. I have to get out of here. "Come on," I say, urging her to stand. "Let's go." She coils away from me, pulling against my hold on her.
"I can't."
"Can't what?" She looks up at me, tears filling her eyes, blood smeared across her face, and says,
"I can't keep pretending that we—"
"Just come home."
"I don't have a home."
Looking past the ugliness, deep into her eyes, and to the depths of what's hidden beneath, my heart beats a beat I've never felt before. It comforts all the fears and doubts I have about her, and assures me that she's where I belong. "I know life hasn't been good to you, and I know you've lost a lot, but you haven't lost everything," I tell her. "I still want what I told you back in Chicago. I want to give you a home you can feel safe in. I want us to have a chance to make that happen."
"But you hate me."
"You're right," I confirm. "I do hate you, but I love you, and that's not going away."
"Do you forgive me?"
"No," I answer, shaking my head.
"Are you done punishing me?"
"No." She drops her head, and I immediately cup her cheeks, angling her back to me when I explain, "I don't know if I'm ever going to get over this, if I'm ever going to get to the point where I don't want to punish you for what you've done. But I need you to understand something. I need you to know that even though you may feel pain, I will never hurt you. I will do everything to give you what was taken from you. I'm going to make you feel safe. I promise you that. No one will ever lay a hand on you again." She never allows the tears to fall as I watch her struggle against her emotions, and I know it's a defense mechanism she uses to protect herself from pain, but she needs to feel it. "Stop fighting yourself," I tell her as I hold her in my hands. "I want to see you cry. Don't hide from me any more."
"I'm not a person you should love."
"Neither am I, but you do, don't you?" Nodding her head, she lets go and weeps.
"So much."
"And I love you," I say, and then gather her in my arms. I hold on to her, listening to her broken breaths before making my selfish request. Cry, Elizabeth. I want to hear you cry and know that it's for me. She tucks her head into the crook of my neck, and when I feel the wetness of her warm tears dripping onto my skin, I'm satisfied. She's quiet in her sadness, and her release comforts me. I like knowing that she can hand it over to me, and I'm the one getting to soothe her. I know she's right in the fact that she shouldn't be loved. Neither of us deserves it, but I can't help myself when it comes to her. I've never been able to curb my addiction to her. Even when I thought she was a married woman, I wanted her regardless, and I want her still. "McKinnon!" Lachlan's voice hollers out. "In here!" I shout as I keep a tight hold on Elizabeth. When he eventually finds his way to us, his voice is disjointed as he takes in the scene before him, uttering, "Holy fuck." "Tell me I can trust you," I say to him, and without a second of hesitation he responds loyally, "You can trust me. Call the police." My arms remain locked around Elizabeth's trembling body while she continues to silently weep, hiding her head against my chest. Without having to even ask, Lachlan hands me her pants before turning around to make the call. It doesn't take long for the authorities to arrive. Elizabeth plays her part as Nina, explaining her husband's murder and the crimes that Richard was conducting through Bennett's company. We twist the story, informing them that Richard murdered Bennett after he'd discovered the money laundering. It takes a while to give our statements that clear me of any involvement in the murder I committed. The medics offer to take Elizabeth to the hospital, but she refuses, fervent that nobody touches her. Before we go, the detective advises us that we may be called in for additional questioning. He hands us his card with his contact information, and we leave. Arriving at the SUV, we climb into the back seat, and I pull her onto my lap, cradling her back in my arms. "Everything's going to be okay," I try assuring her, confident that we both just got away with our crimes. She draws back from me, and I can tell she wants to speak, but she doesn't. She simply stares at me, and I'm able to look beyond the blood, dirt, bruises, cuts, and tears to see what I fell in love with when I first saw her in my hotel back in the States. I'll never forget how beautiful she looked at the grand opening of Lotus, standing across the room in a long midnight blue gown. She was confident, snarky, and so sure of herself, and in this very moment, I vow to give all those qualities back to her. Running my hand around the back of her neck and up into her hair, my fingers graze over the scab that remains from when I pulled her hair out. I stop, and she turns her head in shame away from me. "Look at me." And when she does, I cup her face once again and swallow against the emotional knot in my throat, saying, "You're safe with me," and then move her head to rest against my chest, banding my arms around her. Chapter 38. Shame and embarrassment only exist in things you value. I feel none of that as Lachlan drives us back to Galashiels. I know Declan assumes I'm feeling that way after finding me naked, raped, and covered in Richard's blood from where I bit his dick, but I don't. My body trembles and quakes in his arms as he holds me, but I tremble from fear. Declan told me everything I've been longing to hear, but who's to say I can trust him? Who's to say this won't fail like everything else? Life has taught me that heartache is inevitable, proving over and over that dreams are simply that, dreams, imaginative figments of our subconscious. Why am I to believe this is anything different? I certainly don't deserve it. So here I sit with two options, die or trust. Death seems the safest choice, but I'm also not ready to let go of what I'm starting to get back. Declan's like my heroin. I get one small taste and I'm stuck, fiending for more, but I'm terrified of losing it. Knowing I can't survive without him. I don't want to survive without him. So if this is undoubtedly doomed,
I'd be smart to just end this all now. Maybe my true home doesn't really exist in the hills of Scotland, but instead, in the presence of all that was and is no more. They say death is the ultimate paradise, and the idea of being back with my father and Pike is beyond tempting. But I can't deny how good Declan's hands feel on me right now, holding me and stroking my back. He smells like he always has, and I find comfort in the spicy notes of his cologne the same way I used to find comfort in Pike's clove cigarettes. So as the uncertainty racks my body in unquestionable fear, I hold on tightly to the one thing I fear the most, Declan. He's the one who holds all the power here. He could easily destroy me or make all my dreams come true. But in order for me to find out which, I have to let go of my control, something I've never done before. It terrifies me to hand all the parts of me over to him and trust that he'll take care of them. For now, I selfishly take the affection he's offering me and nuzzle my head more deeply against his chest so that I can hear every sound his heart is making. Allowing its rapid beats to sing to me, I cling more tightly to him. The closer I get, the more senses I open up to him, the more I let the fear consume me. All I want is comfort, but I'm too scared of the pain I'll have to endure when it's gone, and it will, one day, be gone. When we arrive at Brunswick Hill, Declan helps me out of the SUV as I wince in pain. The long drive back gave my body time to dissipate the adrenaline, and now my muscles and bones scream angrily at me, causing me to hunch over. Bracing my hand on Declan's arm to steady myself, he moves to pick me up and carries me inside. Neither of us speaks as he takes me up the stairs, but instead of going into the guest room, he carries me into his. He sets me down on the edge of his bathtub, and I watch him as he wets a washcloth. When he kneels in front of me, he begins wiping my face, and my eyes focus on the terry cloth as it turns from white to pink to red, collecting Richard's blood. I'm a tomb, sitting in the palace, observing. I couldn't move if I wanted to, so I sit. Maybe my body's in shock, or maybe it's just numbing itself for departure. There's no feeling, only sounds as Declan moves about, tending to me. He holds out a toothbrush, but my hand won't move to take it. "Open," he gently requests, and I do. Mint touches my tongue as he brushes my teeth, but it doesn't taste right. And when I look up at Declan, he doesn't look right. Sounds don't sound right, as everything begins to vacuum itself into a tunnel of fog. And now my chest doesn't feel right. Pins prick along my body at the same time my eyes swim out of focus. "Are you okay?" Declan's lips ask, but his voice is muted and a million miles away as I sway. My brain tells my mouth to speak, but the wires don't connect the message as Declan's face morphs into a concoction of colored specks. And then he's gone. Strong hands press through the pins, one on my chest and the other on my back, lowering my body down. "Drop your head," he instructs. I reach out for him when I let my head fall, and his hands quickly move to mine, and I latch onto him. Everything's disconnected, floating in an abyss, causing my pulse to pick up in a panic. "I'm here, I've got you. Just close your eyes and take deep breaths." My tongue is completely numb as I attempt to finally speak, but my words only slur when I say, "I feel sick." "It's okay, just focus on breathing." Soon, I feel the heat of my blood flow, warming my insides, and when my vision comes into focus, I move slowly to sit up. "Better?" I nod. "Let me get you some water," he says before going to fill a glass from the faucet. "Here." I take a few sips, and Declan turns the water on in the shower. He undresses, and I can't peel my eyes away from him as I watch. Every part of him is smooth and cut in deep, muscular lines. Walking over, he takes the glass from me and helps me stand up. With my hands gripped to his shoulders to steady myself, He begins unbuttoning the shirt he put on me. I let go of him, letting the shirt fall to the floor along with my other top and bra that Richard cut with his knife. My body is sore as I help him remove my pants, and then he leads me to the shower. Hot water rains down on me, washing away exterior grime. If only I could turn myself inside out. I'd do anything to cleanse the grime from inside of me, but I can't, and I wonder if that rot will always remain. Declan's fingers run along the open wound on my cheek where Richard dug his knife in, and I hiss against the sting. "Sorry," he whispers, and as I look up into his harrowed eyes, I'm overtaken with guilt, and it becomes too much to hold on to. Heated tears slip out, merging with the heated water as I let my emotions roll down my cheeks. Declan sees it coming out of me, takes my head in his strong hands, and presses the side of my face tightly against his chest. I curl my arms between our bodies and cuddle into him. As we stand here under the water, naked and boundless, exposed and vulnerable, I feel the faint line fracture begin to split. It's a sharp razor, slicing a jagged line through the scar tissue of my deepest pain. A part of me is terrified, but another part of me is ready to end the war inside. But I'm not even given a choice when I feel it taking a life of its own, shredding the fibers of the walls I've spent my whole life erecting.
"It's okay,"
I hear Pike whisper.
"If you shatter, he'll put you back together."
His voice, his words, they allow the severing to happen, and I rip open. Tremors quake through me, and Declan feels it, banding his arms around me, and when he speaks his next words,
"I've got you, darling. If you shatter, I'll put you back together."
I bleed it all out. Dropping to the floor of the shower with me, he tucks me in his arms, and for the first time ever, I cry for everything I've suffered through. I really cry. It's ugly and messy, screaming and sobbing, bawling harder in an attempt to drain all the misery out of me. Salt burns, sadness scathes, memories devastate, but somehow his hands alleviate. I'm tired of being steely and callous. I'm tired of pretending and always fighting against my own skeletons. I'm tired of the uncertainty and hatred that drives the tenebrific evil in me. My wish is that his arms hold the magic to intenerate my heart, to make me good, to make me worthy, to make me lovable. But I doubt any man's arms are that powerful, and that doubt adds more fuel to my fear of Declan. So I cry for fear as well. Because I'm scared. I'm so scared. It's always been there, though. The unease, the worriment, it's lain dormant inside of me since I was 5 years old, coming to life every now and then, but Pike taught me how to quickly silence it in order to survive. The dormancy is gone now. It's a live wire of unfiltered anguish that pours out of me and into the arms of my prince on earth, while my other prince exists only in the nirvana I've yet to become a part of. Warm breath feathers over my ear with a tender, "I'm so sorry." "It's me," I blurt out through the unwavering tears, lifting my head to look into his eyes that own responsibility for things he was never responsible for. "I'm the cause of everything, not you."
"You were just a kid. You didn't deserve what happened to you."
With his words, I reach out to his chest and run my fingers along the 2 bullet wounds that mark my deceit and give him my words. "And you didn't deserve this." His hand covers mine, pressing my palm against his scars, saying,
"I did. Because without it, I would have never found the truth in you."
"But my truth is so ugly."
"Like I said before, the truest part of a person is always the ugliest. But I'm ugly too, so you're not alone."
As the water cascades over us, I feel weighted down in guilt for what I've put this man through. Because none of it mattered when all I truly cared about was simply him. Tell me how to make you forgive me. I know I'm not worthy of your forgiveness, but I want it."
"I wish I knew, but I don't," he tells me. "We're broken people, Elizabeth. You can't expect me to not have my issues, because I have thousands of them. But just because I hold a hate for you doesn't take away from the love I have for you."
His words might not make sense to most people, but for me they do. I just have to choose whether or not to risk handing myself over to him.
"Come here," he says as he stands to help me up.
I take a seat on the built-in slate bench and allow him to wash me as I sit here, drained to depletion. Closing my eyes, I relax into his touch while he washes my hair and cleans my body. But it's when he opens my legs and curses under his breath that I open my eyes and tense up. "What?" I ask, looking down at him as he stares in horror between my thighs. Shifting his eyes up to mine, his jaw grinds before demanding,
"Tell me exactly what happened."
I look down to see the nasty collection of bruises.
"He raped you?"
I nod.
"What else?"
His hands remain on my thighs, spreading me open, when I admit, "He used his gun."
"What do you mean, he used his gun?"
He seethes through his teeth. "To fuck me with. He used his loaded gun and then forced it in my mouth to suck." His fingers sink into my skin as he drops his head, and I can see the muscles in his shoulders and back flex in anger as he tightens his grip on me. His words strain when he goes on to ask,
"And all the blood on your mouth?"
"He was raping me with his gun in my mouth, but I managed to get away, and I bit him."
"His dick?"
"Yes," I whimper, and when he looks up at me, I reveal, "I wanted to die. I begged him to shoot me."
"Don't you dare think about leaving me," he scolds.
"He told me you didn't care what happened to me, that you weren't coming."
"I did come for you," he affirms. "All I could think about was finding you. I was going crazy not knowing how to get to you."
Grabbing a washcloth, he runs it between my legs and begins to gently clean me. Once he has me washed, he keeps me naked as he helps me up into his bed. Nestled in his sheets with his scent all around me, I want to smile, but I can't. Regret consumes, hating the darkness I've brought to us, wishing I could erase it and go back in time to do it all over again.
"I need you to know something," he murmurs, wrapping me up in his arms. "I'm not the same as I was."
But I already know that. It's evident in his eyes. From the moment he stepped out of his SUV and I knew he was alive, I saw the corruption inside of him.
"I keep trying to process what I did to Bennett, find reason for allowing myself to lose control, but I can't."
Reaching my hand to his face, I press my palm against his stubble, and all I can manage to get out is a breathless, "I'll love you no matter how dark you turn." And with that, he finally kisses me, pressing his lips to mine in a fever of emotion that tells me everything that is buried deep within him. His body, heated in bands of roped muscle, rolls on top of me. We're flesh on flesh, transparent, bare, scars opened wide for each other to see. His lips move with mine, opening me up to reunite, claim, and control in carnal ustulation. He growls, rolling his tongue with mine, as I tangle my hands in his hair, savoring his taste. His cock is thick and hard against me, but the moment he grinds himself over my pussy, I wince in pain, crying out as I flinch away from him. He tenses above me, and I try pushing him off of me, but he doesn't budge.
"Are you okay?"
"I'm sorry," I blurt out as he allows me to sit up.
"It's okay," he soothes.
You
don't need to say a word."
Coming in, he takes my breast into his mouth, sucking my nipple, all the while keeping his eyes pinned to mine as I look down at him. He feasts in primal need, and I don't deny him of his need for closeness in this limited capacity. With my legs bent and spread, he lowers himself on me, dropping his lips to my pussy.
"Don't let me hurt you," he tells me as I run my hands in his hair, fisting it the moment his tongue dips through the seam of my core. He keeps his touches soft in a very un-Declan-like way that I'm not used to, dragging his tongue over my clit and then pressing the flat of it against me in slow circles, sending a chill up my spine. Gently, he sucks the bundle of nerves into his mouth. His deep groans vibrate against me, and I know he's restraining himself, so I grant him permission, saying, "It's okay. You won't hurt me." As soon as my words are out, he bares his teeth, sinking them into my moist, tender flesh as I pull his hair. I hiss in a pleasurable pain that only Declan is able to give, and I'm satisfied in knowing he's content to inflict it upon me. I sink down into the bed when his hot tongue begins fucking my pussy, dragging in and out of me in torturous delight. Grabbing onto my hips, he begins to move me over his tongue, up and down, push and pull, forcing me now to fuck his face. Sparks flicker when I close my eyes, and I give in, grinding down on his face, and his approving growls to selfishly take this pleasure he's offering spurs me on more. Thighs quiver, hips buck, heart thuds, and I don't deserve this. "Stop!" I push him away and scoot back. "No!" He barks at me, pulling me back down, wrapping his lips around my clit as he grips his cock and starts jerking himself off. "Declan, please!" I whimper as he draws me closer to my orgasm, but he ignores me. His tongue laps over me, teasing, sucking, biting, licking. He's fervent in his movements with only one goal in mind, and when he rolls my hips against his mouth, I explode. Shattering waves of electricity burn and spark through nerves and veins, heating me in a frisson of passion. I come sinfully hard, feeling every pulsing contraction of my pussy gripping Declan's tongue as he moans out his own orgasm. Our sweat-covered bodies writhe together as internal wounds open in vulnerability. Tears spill from the corners of my eyes when he kisses his way up my battered body, over my breasts, along my neck, and up to my lips where he says, "Taste how perfect you are for me," before dipping his tongue in my mouth so I can taste myself on him. And we kiss. We kiss like no two humans have ever kissed before. We're tear-stained savages, sharing a single breath of life, death, and love. Giving, taking, bruising, and reuniting what I thought was forever destroyed. And for the first time in a very long time, when I tire out and close my eyes, I spend my slumber with Carnegie. Waking up, Declan is sitting up in bed next to me, drinking a cup of coffee and watching the world news on the flat screen above the fireplace that's across the bedroom. As the rain falls outside, pelting against the windows, I lie still, allowing my body to wake up slowly as I watch a breaking news segment. When I stretch out, Declan notices I'm awake, saying, "Morning, darling," and opens his arms up for me to curl into. "What time is it?" I ask in a groggy voice. "After 1. We slept all day." Turning my attention back to the television, I listen to the report on an American aircraft that crashed after there was a malfunction with the landing gear. I melt into Declan's hold as I watch the reporter give an update as the passengers are deplaning in the background. He announces everyone's survival and that only a few were injured and are being taken to the hospital. But it's when the camera pans over the passengers that my heart stalls and I immediately sit up. "What is it?" Declan asks, but I can't speak, and then the segment is over. "Can you rewind this?" "What's going on?" "Just rewind it," I say on a trembled voice, and my body goes into high alert. Declan rewinds the segment, and as soon as the camera zooms in on the passengers, I tell him, "Pause it." My eyes widen in shocked disbelief as my pulse races out of control. It can't be. Crawling to the edge of the bed, Declan's worried voice calls to me in question. "Elizabeth?" Oh my God.
He's alive.
This has been an Audible Studios production of Echo, written by E.K. Blair, performed by Elena Wolf. Producer Mike Charzik. Copyright 2015 by E.K. Blair. Production copyright 2015 by Audible Inc. Audible Studios is a division of Audible Inc.
Audible hopes you have enjoyed this program.